1. A wide, cinematic shot of a suburban street in Belmore at dawn, where automatic sprinklers click rhythmically over lawns with yellowing edges. Visual style is photorealistic and 4K. 2. Up on a metal sprinkler head in mid-rotation, spraying a fine mist of water onto a driveway under a hazy, hot morning sun. 3. A row of full mailboxes on a quiet street, their flags up, suggesting a town frozen in time. High-detert 4K photography. 4. A child's bicycle lying in the middle of a paved street, one wheel spinning slowly and catching the glint of sunlight. Cinematic lighting with long shadows. 5. Empty patio chairs arranged on a porch, looking as if they were just vacated, with a half-full glass of water on a side table. Photorealistic 4K. 6. Water hissing over a concrete sidewalk, forming small puddles that reflect the blue sky above an empty neighborhood. 7. A white county utility truck crossing a southern barricade made of concrete blocks and caution tape. Cinematic 4K resolution. 8. The interior of the utility truck, showing 4 figures in heavy Tyvek suits and respirators, their faces obscured by reflections on the glass. 9. A close-up of Owen Pike's hands on the steering wheel. Weathered and steady, with a faint scent of coffee suggested by a thermos in the cup holder. 10. June Alvarez sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes focused and sharp behind her clear visor, a medic kit strapped to the seat beside her. 11. Malik Carter in the back seat, surrounded by control system equipment and digital tablets, his youthful face tense under the respirator. 12. Deputy Harlan Briggs looking out the window at his hometown, his expression one of deep longing and suppressed fear. Photorealistic 4K style. 13. The view through the windshield of Belmore's main street. Eerily quiet with no signs of movement or life. 14. A military checkpoint at the edge of the valley, featuring concertina wire and soldiers in heavy gear under harsh, artificial lights. 15. A soldier in a gas mask leaning toward the truck window, checking the seals on the team's suits with a professional, detached air. 16. Close-up on a soldier's wristband and the paper-white skin of his hands, reflecting the stress of his post. 17. A shot of a residential door tied shut with heavy nylon rope, a cryptic and unsettling detail in a quiet neighborhood. 18. The utility truck rolling slowly past a gas station where all 4 pumps are still lit, showing the current price of fuel. 19. A minivan idling at a curb outside a bakery, the driver's door wide open and the interior light flickering. 20. Close-up on a bakery window where loaves of bread have collapsed and are covered in thick, blue-green mold. 21. A wide shot of the Belmore Water Tower, painted with trout and pine trees, towering over a town that feels entirely hollow. 22. The air over the street shimmering with heat, with a visible white residue clinging to the storm drains like old foam. 23. Close-up of the white residue on the curb, appearing crystalline and unnatural against the black asphalt. 24. Truck parked beside Gatehouse 1, a low concrete building next to a spill race with brown, withered cattails. 25. Malik and the narrator stepping out of the truck, their white suits stark against the drab, industrial surroundings. 26. Harlan standing by the road with a rifle, his posture alert as he scans the empty tree line. 27. The interior of Gatehouse 1, dark and dusty, with headlamps cutting through the gloom to reveal abandoned clipboards. 28. A desk fan in the control room, still pointed at an empty chair, its blades frozen in place. 29. A metal door as a service corridor zip-tied shut from the outside with 3 bright orange loops. 30. Close-up on the orange zip ties, the plastic straining against the door handles in the dim light. 30. For 1. The heavy manual wheel for the water gate, covered in a thin layer of rust and grime. 32. Owen and the narrator leaning their weight into the manual wheel, their boots scuffing the concrete floor. 33. A legal pad on a desk with the words, "Not the air, the vents," written in hurried block letters. 34. Close-up on the handwriting on the legal pad, the ink smeared as if written in a panic. 4K photorealistic detail. 35. The team standing by the spill race, listening to the silence of the town, their figures reflected in the stagnant water. 36. A shot of the vents on the side of the gatehouse, the metal grates looking dark and deep. 37. The interior of the second-floor apartment above the hardware store, with broken blinds on casting striped shadows on the floor. 38. A thin boy Eli, seen through a window holding a flashlight and a hammer, his eyes wide and unblinking. 39. The barricaded door of Eli's apartment, piled high with furniture, canned goods, and a sideways refrigerator. 40. Eli's wrists and ankles wrapped in dish towels and secured with rubber bands, a makeshift protection against the unknown. 41. Close-up on Eli's eyes, reflecting the beam of a flashlight, showing a mix of exhaustion and hypervigilance. 42. A handheld scanner on a bedroom floor, its small screen glowing with the waveform of a recorded message. 43. June checking Eli's vitals in the dim light of the apartment, her movements clinical and steady. 44. A shot of a taped-up vent above the kitchen sink, the duct tape peeling at the edges. 45. The team huddled around the handheld scanner, listening to the crackling audio of a dispatch tape. 46. Close-up on the tape reels of the scanner, spinning slowly as the voice of an epidemiologist plays. 47. A wide shot of the elementary school at dusk, its brick facade looking dark and imposing. 48. The school gymnasium filled with hundreds of empty cots, some with tangled blankets and others stripped bare. 49. Water jugs and paper masks scattered across folding tables in the gym, signs of a hurried evacuation. 50. A large sheet hung over the scoreboard with the words, "Keep their mouths closed" spray painted in red. 51. Close-up on a child's blue inhaler lying forgotten on a cot, a poignant symbol of the sudden crisis. 52. The dark, empty hallways of the school, lined with construction paper and class photos of smiling children. 53. A series of handprints on the school walls at shoulder height, appearing as if someone had felt their way along in the dark. 54. The team's headlamps illuminating a rattling vent, cover high on a gymnasium wall. 55. Close-up on a vent screw that has been removed and replaced by hand, the metal around it bent outward. 56. The shadows of the team members lengthening across the gym floor as they back toward the exit. 57. A shot of the school entrance from the outside, the doors standing open like a dark mouth. 58. The white utility truck driving through a lower-income neighborhood where garden hoses are still running. 59. A barbecue grill in a backyard, its lid closed but the paint blistered from a fire that burned itself out. 60. Television screen flickering blue in a dark living room window, showing the loop of an emergency bulletin. 61. The first figure seen at the clinic, a woman in a floral housecoat with her neck wrapped in thick, damp gauze. 62. Close-up on the gauze around the woman's neck, showing dark spots of moisture and an unsettling texture. 63. A group of 3 figures standing by an ambulance bay, their heads tilted as if listening to a distant sound. 64. The figures turning in unison toward the sound of a bottle clattering on the asphalt. 65. A wide shot of the treatment annex, a concrete structure looming over the old limestone cut. 66. The interior of the annex control room, smelling of chlorine and wet concrete, with a single lamp on the floor. 67. A map of Belmore's utility grid on the wall, covered in red pencil marks, circling air returns and maintenance hatches. 68. The words "They are using the old runs" written in block letters at the bottom of the map. 69. The lower gallery of the annex, where a grated walkway hangs over a black channel of moving water. 70. Owen and Malik, working the heavy iron wheel of the third interceptor gate, their faces strained. 71. A group of figures standing in a dark service arch across the water channel, their faces pale and unmoving. 72. Close-up on the figures' eyes, which track movement with a slow, mechanical precision. 73. A child in a yellow raincoat stepping into the black water of the channel, wading toward the team. 74. The child's mouth opening to reveal a cacophony of overlapping voices, an abstract representation of vocal contamination. 75. Owen slamming the locking pin into the interceptor wheel as the gate finally seals shut. 76. The team fleeing up a metal ladder, as hands reach for the bottom rungs from the darkness below. 77. 2 chemical drums used to barricade a hatch, the metal vibrating from impacts on the other side. 78. Malik coughing into his hand, his expression changing as he looks at his palm in the light. 79. Close-up on Malik's hand, showing fine white, sugar-like threads in his saliva. 80. June swabbing Malik's mouth with a clear solution, her face set in a mask of professional focus. 81. The team moving through a narrow maintenance tunnel, their respirators echoing in the tight space. 82. A shot of the green chlorine cylinders lined up in the contact chamber like silent sentinels. 83. The dark, flooded tunnel of the outfall, with the sound of the river rushing at the far end. 84. Malik standing still in the contact chamber, his eyes fixed on a vent in the ceiling. 85. Malik reaching for the emergency alarm pull, his silhouette backlit by the dim safety lights. 86. The white cloud of chlorine gas erupting from the cylinders, filling the room with a thick, choking mist. 87. A wide shot of the gas cloud swallowing the figures in the chamber, the alarm klaxon visible as a flashing red light. 88. The narrator sliding down a concrete runoff shelf, the black river water churning below. 89. Owen reaching back into the tunnel as gunfire exists in a concrete entrance. 90. A view of Belmore from the river, town appearing small and gray under a cold falling rain. 91. The narrator waking up in a hospital bed, the room sterile and white with a single window. 92. A close-up of a transcript on a hospital blanket, the words "no confirmed recoveries" visible. 93. A shot of a map where the town of Belmore has been replaced by a blank green space. 94. The narrator standing by a road where a fence once stood, the area now overgrown with tall grass and young trees. 95. A close-up of the narrator's throat, showing the faint jagged scars of chlorine burns. 96. A dark kitchen at night with the moonlight hitting a metal vent cover above a stove. 97. The vent cover shifting slightly, as if something heavy is resting on the other side. 98. A wide shot of the valley at dawn, the trees reclaiming the abandoned streets and houses. 99. A bird flying high above the valley, but swerving to avoid crossing the town's perimeter. 100. Close-up on a mailbox overgrown with ivy. Flag still up, rusted and forgotten. 101. The truck's abandoned interior, with a layer of dust covering the seats and the medical kit. 102. A blue paper mask caught in the weeds of the school playground, fluttering in the wind. 103. The school scoreboard, red spray-painted message fading but still legible. Sun 4. A series of orange zip ties lying snapped on the floor of Gatehouse 1. Sun 5. The legal pad in the gatehouse, now damp and curled, the ink long since washed away. 106. A shot of the river intake, where new concrete and fences have been built to redirect with the water. 107. The shadow of a person standing in a dark hallway, holding a handheld scanner. 108. A close-up of the scanner's screen, showing a flat line of static. 109. The heavy iron wheel of the interceptor, now submerged and covered in silt. 110. A child's yellow raincoat floating in the dark water of the treatment annex. 111. The chlorine contactive chamber, now empty and silent, with the green cylinders gone. 112. A wide, cinematic shot of the Belmore Water Tower at sunset. Trout and pine mural peeling away. 113. The narrator's hands trembling as she holds a copy of the second dispatch tape. 114. Close-up of the tape player's play button being pressed as by a scarred finger. 115. The reflection of the narrator in a dark window, looking older and more tired. 116. A suburban street where every house has its vents sealed with silver duct tape. 117. A group of people standing on a sidewalk, all looking up at a ventilation shaft on a building. 118. The white residue on the storm drains, now spread like a web across the entire street. 119. A close-up of a bird's wing spread out on a tar roof, perfectly preserved but lifeless. 120. The interior of a school bus, its seats empty and the floor covered in construction paper. 121. A shot of the Belmore city limits sign, riddled with bullet holes and partially covered by vines. 122. The reflection of a white utility truck in a puddle of rainwater on an empty road. 123. A heavy steel door with a restricted sign bolted to it, the paint flaking off in large chunks. 124. A close-up of a child's sock stuck to the black asphalt of a deserted intersection. 1 in 25. A trail of white dust leading into a dark alleyway, disappearing into the shadows. 126. The gym doors of the school standing open, the interior pitch black and silent. 127. Paper mask caught on a wire fence, shivering in a light breeze. 128. A wide shot of a valley filled with a low-hanging, Brown overcast that flattens the light. 129. A barbecue grill standing in the middle of a perfectly mowed lawn, looking out of place. 130. A garden hose snaking across a porch, water dripping slowly from the nozzle. 131. The interior of a hardware store, the aisles dark and the shelves neatly stocked. 132. A hammer lying on a wooden floor next to a pile of canned fruit. 133. Close-up of a rubber band holding a dish towel around a thin wrist. 134. A flashlight beam hitting the metal slats of a ventilation grate. 135. A shelf full of recorded tapes, each labeled with a date and a time in neat handwriting. 136. Close-up of a medical swab showing the faint glint of white filaments. 37. Gas mask lying on a bed of wet stone, its glass visor cracked. 138. A wide shot of a river discharge culvert, the concrete stained with rust and moss. 139. A metal ladder leading down into a dark echoing chamber. 140. A red emergency alarm pole, its paint chipped and the wire hanging loose. 141. A cloud of white vapor illuminated by a single flickering emergency light. 142. A figure in a Tivik suit standing at the edge of a black river, looking back at a dark tunnel. 143. A hand reaching out of a dark vent, the fingers pale and thin. 44. A close-up of a radio speaker, emitting a steady hum of static. 145. A shot of a person's eyes behind a visor, filled with the reflection of a white gas cloud. 146. The silhouette of a town against a stormy sky, no lights visible in any window. In 47. A close-up of a drop of water falling from a sprinkler into a pool of white foam. 148. Bicycle wheels spinning in the wind, its spokes catching the moonlight. 149. A row of identical houses, each with its front door standing wide open. 150. A pile of grocery bags in the middle of a road, their contents spilled and spoiled. 151. Close-up of a rice sack that has melted open in the heat, the grains mixed with white dust. 152. A shadow moving across a gymnasium floor, dragging slowly behind it. 153. A metal duct in a ceiling, the screws lying on the floor beneath it. 154. Close-up of a person's mouth as they speak into a handheld radio. 155. A wide shot of a limestone cut, the rock face covered in old utility pipes. 156. A flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of a service corridor. 157. A close-up of a pressure gauge on a pipe, the needle stuck in the red zone. 158. A group of people standing in a circle, their heads all bowed toward a central point. 159. Shot of a person's feet wading through shallow, dark water. 160. A close-up of a metal gate closing, the gears grinding together. 161. Cloud of steam rising from a storm drain on a cold morning. 162. A person's hand tracing the red marks on a utility map. 163. A wide shot of an empty parking lot, the asphalt cracked and grass growing through. 164. A single blue paper mask lying in the middle of a vast field. 65. A close-up of a person's ear as if they are listening to something very faint. 166. A shot of a person's shadow on a brick wall, distorted and elongated. 167. A wide shot of a river at night, the water reflecting the stars. 68. Close-up of a metal latch being clicked into place. 169. A person standing in front of a mirror, their face partially obscured by shadow. 170. Shot of a person's hand holding a single child-sized sock. 71. A wide shot of a forest where the trees have all turned a dull, sickly gray. 172. Close-up of a drop of blood on a white Tyvek suit. 173. A person sitting in a dark room, the only light coming from a small scanner screen. 174. A shot of a person's eyes, reflecting the blue light of a television bulletin. 175. A wide shot of a deserted highway, with no cars in sight for miles. 176. A close-up of a person's hand turning a small rusted wheel. 177. Shot of a person's silhouette against a bright white background. 178. A close-up of a person's lips moving, but no sound coming out. 179. A wide shot of a town covered in a thick white mist. 180. A close-up of a person's pressing a button on a tape player. 181. A shot of a person's feet, walking slowly through a field of tall grass. 182. A close-up of a person's face, showing the tension in their jaw. 183. A wide shot of a river flowing under a bridge, the water dark and deep. 184. A close-up of a person's hand touching a cold metal vent. 185. A shot of a person's shadow falling across a dark doorway. 186. A wide shot of a valley at night, with a single light flickering in the distance. 187. Close-up of a person's eyes, wide with realization and fear. 188. A shot of a person's hand holding a rusted key. 189. A wide shot of an empty classroom, the desks and chairs all neatly arranged. 190. A close-up of a person's throat as they swallow, the skin tight. 191. A shot of a person's silhouette disappearing into a dark forest. 192. A wide shot of a town at sunset, the light casting long, dramatic shadows. 193. A close-up of a person's hand closing a heavy, metal door. 194. A final wide shot of the Belmore Water Tower, standing tall against a clear, blue sky. A rainy night, their silhouette fading.